all right, we're in the apocalypse. You don't have access to a gym. You don't have access to any strength training equipment.
Mm-hmm.
But you are a BJJ athlete.
Okay.
And you can't afford personal training because there's no such thing as money anymore. It's a bartering system.
Okay.
What would you do to strength train as a BJJ athlete, assuming that you don't have access to anything?
Okay. I've been asked this question before, not in the context of like a post-apocalyptic world. But the question has been asked, what if I don't have any equipment? What do I do? And that's pretty much what you're asking, more or less.
Essentially, yeah. But we want to get down to like the fundamentals of
like
what are we?
Yeah. So the way we structure pretty much all of our programs, well, everything starts with an assessment. I'll start by saying that doesn't exist in the post-apocalyptic world. You don't have a personal trainer. You don't have somebody to assess you.
There's no assessment. Yeah.
There's no assessment. I think it's important that you get a little bit of everything. So what that's called is the concurrent training model, which just means we train mobility, we train speed, power, strength, both bilateral and unilateral, so two limb or one limb, and conditioning all at the same time. And the reason we do that is because if you train only one of those qualities, you in effect detrain the other qualities. And so our goal is to make as well-rounded an athlete as we can. And the concurrent training model, I think, serves that purpose or serves that goal really well, especially in a sport where you don't get to choose which quality you express when, typically, right? Because in jiu-jitsu, you don't know when you're going to need to scramble power and speed. You don't know when you're going to need or how much you're going to need to hold an opponent, isometric strength. You don't know when you're going to need to absorb somebody else's strength or technique or whatever it is, right? And so focusing on or approaching strength training from a broader perspective, I think is really, really important. That being said, post-apocalyptic world, no equipment, really, nobody to guide you. Push-ups, some type of chin-up or pull-up, some type of hinge, preferably unilateral if you had no...
There's a lot of big words.
Yeah. Unilateral, just single limb, so on one leg. Squat on one leg. As much as you can, like if you had to prioritize single limb versus two limbs, I think single limb takes priority, which is good for two reasons. The first is, in a post-apocalyptic world, you probably don't have that much equipment, if any at all. And when you train unilaterally, you don't need as big a load to like stimulate the musculature that you're targeting, right? The second is the carryover into everyday life, or in this case, jiu-jitsu, post-apocalyptic jiu-jitsu. Unilateral or single limb trumps double limb every time, because if we were to use the example, like the lower body examples, like you walk one leg at a time, you run one leg at a time. When you retain guard, you're putting pressure with one leg more so than the other. And it's very rare that you're 50-50 on, your weight on 50-50 on both legs, pressing equally through both, right? And so that's why I think single limb training is more important than two limb in that case. And then from a core perspective, anti-extension, anti-rotation, anti-lateral flexion. And so
I don't know what any of that means.
So anti-extension prevents you from arching your back backwards. Anti-rotation prevents you from turning side to side or like twisting the spine. And then anti-lateral flexion keeps you from bending side to side. Those are important because in order to transfer energy from your lower body to your upper body, you have to generate stiffness through the core. And the example I'll give is that of the baseball bat. Like if you tried to hit a baseball with a pool noodle, it wouldn't go very far because the pool noodle is not stiff. It's not rigid. And therefore it can't transfer energy effectively. And so when we train the core, and I should preface this by saying the spine is meant to bend, and it should bend and it should move, because if it doesn't, that's how you get hurt. But when it comes to both absorbing force and creating force in an effort to either resist your opponent's advances or, exert your technique or whatever it is over them, you have to generate stiffness through the core. So post-apocalyptic world.
Yeah, let's like
Yeah.
So now we got the theory, which is very helpful. But no, it is helpful, right? Not trying to.
I could go forever.
Yeah, not trying to discount any of the theory here, but we got the zombies closing in.
Got it.
Jiu-jitsu zombies.
Jiu-jitsu zombies.
Obviously. What is the strength program you're giving to somebody?
A lot of sprints
right now.
Okay. Sprints.
Okay, maybe my question was wrong. Yeah, what is it? So you mentioned like push-ups. So we're just talking about like a minimal equipment setup. Like, what are the things that are going to be most adaptive, I guess, for a BJJ athlete? You said some kind of push-up, some kind of pull-up, and then we started talking about like single leg movements.
Yep.
What can you just name all like the exercises?
All of the exercises?
No, not all the exercises.
Okay.
Like give me a program.
A program.
Yeah.
Warm up appropriately. That often includes some type of rhythm, coordination, balance. You want to elevate your heart rate, make sure you don't like go into all this super cold. And then sprints go first. That's the most explosive thing a human can do and requires you to be the freshest in order to actually exert yourself at the correct intensity. And then if we have some type of, I don't know, post-apocalyptic medicine ball, throw that, or a rock or something light enough, I guess heavy enough that you have to work to throw it, but light enough that it can move fast. So, and the reason that is
no reasons.
No reasons.
Yeah,
okay.
continue.
We'll
get to the reasons in a
throw
second.
A rock.
But what's the program?
Throw a rock.
Okay.
And then you get into your like jumps, hops, and bounds. So lower body explosiveness, right? And then
what's the exercise we're doing there?
Jumps, hops, or bounds.
Yeah, just like with nothing, just like
you don't
jumping.
you don't necessarily need obstacles to jump, hop, or bound over. You could use your imagination there if you really wanted to.
Okay.
But the zombies, they're coming, and so
fences,
yeah. So your lower body power stuff, jumps, hops, bounds, and then you get into the strength stuff. Those being like a single leg hinge, like a single leg deadlift. We'll go core next, so a front plank, push up. And then you can do, 2 or 3 cycles of those. And then the last block would be, say, like a single leg squat, like a split squat. And then we'll say like anti-lateral flexion, so like a side plank. And then last would be like chin-ups.
Okay.
Or pull-ups, or whatever you can do to row, whether that's vertical or horizontal. Either one.
Okay.
Yeah.
A rowing motion is
some type of pull.
Hitting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some type of pull. Yeah. Okay. And obviously that would depend on like
a boat.
Yeah. Row. Yeah. So that's how I would structure it. There's an argument to be made for putting the core stuff before your dynamic warm-up, which we're experimenting with, and I think has yielded good results, but I won't get into whys. because you just wanted to know what's.
I wanted to know what first, and then I wanted to actually go back
Okay.
to so we started talking about like the throwing, and you started describing like the rock, like it needs to be heavy enough for something but light enough for something. And okay, really we're like at your gym, we're using like medicine balls. By the way, disclaimer here, I do train with Matt, but this is not like a sales pitch for this, so I'm not going to ask the questions in any sort of leading fashion. This will just be to like help the viewers here give like get some kind of like idea of an ideal strength training program for BJJ, right? And Matt is an excellent coach, runs a great gym called Victory Submission Strength, and if you are not in the San Jose area, that's where Matt runs the gym. But like, this is, as far as I'm understanding, like this type of system that you have is like sort of the what do we call it, within the realm of strength training for like sports performance and stuff. The way you're doing this stuff is like how people in the same space are. It's kind of like the state of the art way of doing that type of training, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's we'll say like general sports performance tinted with a BJJ lens, right?
Yeah.
There's a time and a place, without getting too much into the weeds, there's a time and a place for like general athletic performance, and then we try to like move people from general to more specific things in the BJJ realm in order to like help them for the thing that they want to do.
Got it. Yeah, cool. So going back to the medicine balls, real quick, let's talk about the why there.
So the why, power is strength with a time component. So that just means how fast can you express a certain level of strength. And the faster you try to express it, the less weight that you can do it with, right? Like you couldn't bench press 315 pounds fast. That's a slow lift. And so if you want to develop the quality of like explosiveness, upper body explosiveness, then you have to train that way. And that is often done with medicine balls, or in this case, post-apocalyptic rocks. Again, light enough that you can move them fast, but they've got to be heavy enough that you kind of have to work to move them. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Some of this stuff seems pretty intuitive to me. Like, I think, at least in my perception, it seems like maybe we try to overcomplicate it a little bit when we're unsure what to do. But the fact that you can describe what to do in the setting of a post-apocalyptic world is like, it's like kind of obvious stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I think I think that is common. I think what you said is exactly right. Especially in the jiu-jitsu space, people tend to overcomplicate strength training, and it doesn't have to be that hard. Just move. Well, if we talk about this in terms of like what's called the force velocity curve.
I love these words, man.
You can do, okay. So like,
no, that wasn't it was just a joke. It's just
on one end, if you're like looking at this, right, on one end, you have like the amount of force here and then the speed here. And so
that's the force velocity curve.
Yep. And so the more force something takes, the slower it is, right? So the curve kind of like comes from the top and then slopes down.
So like that's your example of like a 315-pound bench press.
Yeah.
Like it takes a lot of force. It's gonna be slow.
So it's gonna be slow
like
versus sprints would be all the way on the other end.
Got it.
Exactly. And so the goal is to what we call is like surf the curve. So you want to work on all of those things if you can. And so that's really the very, very broad strokes. The approach is try to train them all. That way you build a more well-rounded athletic profile for the athlete.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I have not heard you explain it like that yet, but that makes sense. So you do want to train these like really heavier, slow movements,
Yeah.
and you want to have like the explosiveness, and you want you want this what you're calling the unilateral strength, which is basically like training like one limb to be strong on its own,
Correct.
independent of the other limb.
Yeah. Exactly.
And you also want full body movements to have the body
Yeah.
function as a unit strongly.
Absolutely.
And now I'm just and you want multiple directions.
Yes. Yeah. And multiple directions. I think one important thing to note here is like fast feeds heavy, heavy feeds fast. And so what that means is, training low reps, high weight, like high intensity helps you get faster in that your ceiling for like your maximum expression of strength is higher when you do that. And therefore your ability to express it faster rises. Likewise, training fast helps you train heavy in that the neural pathways and the speed with which the message reaches your brain or goes from your brain to your limbs is faster when you train sprints and upper body power, like the medicine ball stuff, or lower body power, like the plyometrics, jumps, hops, bounds, all that. And so when you train the brain to send those messages quicker, then when you go back to training heavy stuff, you can get more like a stronger message to the limb and therefore lift heavier. And so they do play into each other. And that's something that we try to take advantage of.
Got it. Cool. Thank you for going into the details there.
You're very welcome.
Let's see here. So I wrote out a bunch of questions. Let's see what we got here. I guess in the BJJ space and or in the strength training space, if there's any overlap, what makes a bad coach?
Oh man. I think one who, I guess there's a two-pronged answer. The first is and I think a lot of us grew up under the impression that training has to be hard and has to suck for it to work. And I say that as a coach who also did that to players, and I feel so bad for it now. I've talked to a lot of them, and we're cool now.
You're
but
talking about in hockey?
Yeah, in hockey. Yeah. I have since learned that is not the way. And training is meant to build you up, not break you down. There's a time and a place for pushing through fatigue and, there's a time and a place for that. It's just not every time. And so that's the first thing. I think like a coach who completely disregards that and just tries to break you down the whole time could use work on their coaching skills. The second point would be, I think it's really, really important for coaches to have a very dynamic feedback loop with whoever it is that they're working with. And so that means like constantly checking in and constantly figuring out what's working and what's not so that you can make the safest, most efficient decision for whatever comes next. So as an example, this is something that we teach all of our interns, all of the coaches who work for us, like abide by this. When we watch a lift or when we are coaching a lift, we're watching to see if the form looks good. We're also watching to see if the last rep is as fast as the first rep. If it's as fast as the first rep and it's perfect, then chances are we could probably go up and weight. If it's still perfect but slow, then that means they're working through the last rep and they're probably close to the top end, right? They're close to their end capability for that lift. And then, so that's like the visual feedback that we're taking in. And then there's verbal feedback where we'll ask, what was that on a scale of 1 to 10? So we're using rate of perceived exertion. And that's a subjective call, and that could change from day to day. It could change from set to set, depending on any number of things, sleep, hydration, whatever. If they trained earlier in the day, and so we'll ask them for their subjective, rate of perceived exertion. And then if that number doesn't quite match what we saw, then we'll go one step further and we'll say, okay, how many more clean reps do you think you could have done at that weight? And then, so say for example, somebody says, well, that was a 7 out of 10. And then I'm like, was it a 7 out of 10? And then I say, well, how many more clean reps do you think you could do? And they say, oh, 1. Then it wasn't a 7 out of 10. It was hard. It was, if you could only do 1 clean rep left, then it was probably a 9 out of 10. And so that's my cue to back off a little bit, because that might not be the adaptation that we're going for that week, right? We might be looking for 7s out of 10s. And so I say, okay, this is probably a little too heavy this week. We'll come back to it next week whenever we're trying to go for a higher intensity. And so there's a lot of feedback that's involved in making decisions that's pretty much after every set and every rep. The goal ultimately is to harp on that feedback loop so meticulously and so often that the athletes kind of auto-regulate themselves. And the goal, I think the sign of a really, really strong feedback loop, or in this case, a good coach, is what's called a silent set. So ultimately, and it's the coolest feeling in the world for me as a coach, when I see an athlete set up, they do something wrong, and then they fix it. And I'm like, I did my job. It's in their brain. I can tell that the learning has happened.
This is Inception.
Yeah.
You're trying to incept people to work harder on their own rather than it being your idea, is what this sounds like.
Kind of. I think there's something to be said for having a coach push you. It's really, really hard to push yourself hard enough to get the adaptation that you need. Oftentimes, and we've talked about this on previous podcasts, where the brain will shut you down well before you
actually can stop.
Yeah,
you actually need to stop.
Exactly. And the threshold is actually remarkably low. And so that's important to keep in mind as a coach and as an athlete. But yeah, our goal is to teach people how to feel what it's like to have what's a true 9 out of 10 effort, what's a true 10 out of 10 effort, so that they can accurately, make the decisions.
Yeah, so that they can judge that for themselves. There was another example I was thinking of, this Inception thing. It's it's almost like you have to make people want to do something for them to actually, or the idea has to be the person's, right? The person needs to be the one who's trying to do the work and push themselves, because I feel when the incentive is punishment or yelling for not doing something, I guess depending on your personality, me especially, that's just a non-starter for me.
Yeah.
Especially because I was in the Army, and I was actually reading a Reddit thread the other day about collective punishment in BJJ. I think in this example, somebody showed up late, and then the coach was making everybody do push-ups.
Yeah, I saw that post.
Yeah, and there's all these Redditors comment. There's a handful of them that were saying
he was he didn't run in the line, right? He did the shrimps or whatever, and then he didn't run back.
Oh, it was that. Yeah, not showing up late. Yeah, and they all had to do push-ups as punishment. And then a handful of people were commenting I already went through basic training.
Yeah.
And I had to every time there's some sort of collective punishment, I'm this is the military. This is absurd. And when people, at least for me, when people treat me like that, it's It's like I don't want to do the thing anymore.
Right. Yeah.
That they want me to do.
Exactly.
Like,
in fact, I want to do it less.
I want to do the opposite thing.
Exactly.
I want to leave.
Exactly. Yeah. I think there's two there's two important things that you talked about. Hopefully I can hold on to them long enough to touch on them. But the first is knowing your athlete, right? Because there are some people who do respond to that.
Yeah, but if that's like communicated, like it depends on the relationship too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like if I know that I want you to tell me
you're
I don't know,
shit.
scream at me like you fucking suck, keep going. It's like, yeah, like that's motivating me.
Right. And so that we're back to the dynamic feedback loop with the athlete, right? So there was a kid that I played with when I played hockey back in DC. He responded to that. I did not. And I can remember a game where he had accidentally left. There used to be a thing. It was called skate weights, and you'd put these like little 1 pound weights on your skates, and it was meant to like, you'd be pushing an extra pound, and then you would take them off, and then you'd go way faster, and they're great. But he accidentally left them on during a game. He's like one of our best players, and he accidentally left them on during a game, and my coach noticed it. And he was like, "What the fuck are you doing? Like, no wonder you're so slow. Look at your feet." And he started screaming at him, yelling at him. And so he took him off. And I've never seen a kid play that hard. He went out and he's like, "I'll show you, motherfucker." And kid scored 3 goals after that. It was like, wow, that was cool. Yeah. But like if he had gotten in my face about it, I'd been like, fuck, like that's just not my personality. And so I understand that. So that's the first thing I want to touch on is that's, again, goes back to the feedback loop, knowing your athlete, knowing how they respond, communicating like coaching style and how somebody receives coaching or wants to receive coaching and adapting to that. And then kind of to tack on to that, another thing that we use as a form of feedback is like, we're looking at how people walk in the door, because sometimes people come in and they're like, bouncing off the walls, fist bumps everywhere. Hey, okay.
Stefan, we're looking at you, bro.
Like, okay, let's send it today. And then other people walk in and they're like, fuck, I'm gassed. And we're like, okay. It's like body language, even before they even touch a weight, it plays a role in that. And I think that's important is, there's gotta be a holistic approach to how you determine what is right for that athlete on that day. And I will admit, in a jiu-jitsu setting, that's hard to do when you've got 40 people on the mats. That's really hard, and I fully acknowledge that. It's a little bit easier in our situation where we have 4 athletes that we have to take care of as coaches. So it's a little bit easier for me to be like, in just talking to them about how they're feeling and what they're doing and all that, so that we're making the right decision. So that's one of the challenges that I think comes with just coaching jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, the scale of it is much bigger than so you have to kind of have a level of what is going to work for the group versus what can work for each individual person.
Right.
And okay, I never thought about that actually. The challenges of being a jiu-jitsu coach.
Yeah.
We got a little bit of time left.
Yeah, hit me.
Cool.
Do we have hot takes or?
We do have hot takes. We can.
This is what I've been looking forward to the most. Actually, is hot takes.
All right, we're going into hot takes.
Hit me.
Hot takes.
Woo! Hot takes.
Training takedowns for BJJ. Go.
Everybody should do them. I think they're important. But be careful about. I would say I'm a fan of like drill entry, finish instead of finish every single time, because that shit takes a toll on you. It's hard.
Time. Yeah, for those who aren't aware, I started judo.
That's important to note.
Yeah. Yeah, we were actually just talking last night. You're like, you also like to hyper focus on one thing that you're doing, which I think it might be a common attribute amongst BJJ players, is this like super hyper focus.
Absolutely.
And you were like, I don't want to do judo and takedowns right now because I'm focusing on like
Yeah.
like the ground aspect of BJJ essentially.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Next one. BJJ Fanatics video covers. Go.
Oh, iconic in a way. They have really cemented themselves as like they've certainly done a good job branding because when you see that cover or anything like it that it is BJJ Fanatics. So I appreciate the branding aspect. Is that 20?
No, keep going.
Oh, okay.
20.
Damn.
That was very you just
it's the business it's the business person in me.
Yeah, that was a very nice way to compliment. No hit on anybody. I guess it is like instantly recognizable. Even the thumbnails like on YouTube, like you know what you're getting.
They're not the most aesthetically pleasing, but iconic.
Brand recognition.
Yeah. Something to be said for that for sure.
Okay, we can cut this next one out if it's if it's gonna affect your relationships.
Okay.
Mikey Musa Messi's Instagram posts lately. Go.
Oh man. I'm a fan. I know. Are you talking about the weird pickup lines or
the weird ones and the rants?
Okay. You know what? You do you. Be yourself, man. I'm cool with it.
Hell yeah. All right. Very supportive. For the record, I love him too.
I do love that he said it wasn't calling out Nate Diaz, but the caption in the post was just Nate's handle, which was like, did you see this?
No,
okay.
I haven't seen that one.
So for anybody watching, if you haven't seen it yet, there was the Mikey Musumeci Sneeko feud online, and Mikey was like, I'll go with you, like let's do it. I'll smoke you, and Sneeko didn't do anything because he wasn't. And anyways, video surfaced of you can't see Nate and Sneeko in the video. It's like the video is facing one way and they must be behind. I don't think whoever recorded it, I don't think was supposed to be recording it. But you can hear Nate, which is, it's sad to me because I am a Nate fan, I guess. But he's just like talking so much shit about Mikey. He's saying some fairly unsavory things, and Mikey caught wind of it, and he made a post the other day that was like, first of all, huge fan of the Diaz brothers. You know, they're great black belts. They're great MMA fighters. I'm not calling him out for an MMA fight. He'd absolutely smoke me, but we're both black belts in jiu-jitsu. Would love to grapple with you. See how it goes. And then just like put Nate's handle in the caption. No words, just Nate's handle. And I was like,
damn, calling people out.
Yeah. For the record, and I do think Nate is a really, really good black belt, but I think Mikey would absolutely cook him.
I think he would smoke him.
Yeah. It wouldn't be close.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be close.
Yeah.
Gi, no gi, doesn't matter. He'd smoke him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've seen, yeah, there's a lot of evidence of Mikey smoking people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Big Mikey fan, by the way. I just some of those posts crack me up. Last one. Driving long distances to watch your teammates' super fights. Go.
Man, I mean, I think people should support if they can, if they're in town. What's long distance?
3 hours.
Oh shit. Are you trying to get Will up here? What are you doing?
Get Will? No.
Well, I guess Will's like 5 hours, but
yeah. Oh, we missed. All right, that's 20 seconds.
I'm sorry.
I was going for a very particular story that I remembered you talking about.
Oh shit. Okay, I can tell the story.
Okay.
Well, I went to, okay. There was a Fight to Win event in Sacramento, and Kyle was headlining it, and so I wanted to go watch my professor compete, and I drove to Sacramento like everybody else did, but I got caught in traffic, like several hours of traffic, and so I got to Sacramento. I think it ended up being like 4 hours, which is typically like a 2 hour drive, and so it took me about 4 hours to get there. and I walked into the venue just in time to watch Kaio walk out and then finish the fight in under 30 seconds. And then I drove home immediately after. So I spent a collective 6 hours on the road to watch less than 30 seconds of jiu-jitsu.
For a 30-second match.
And at the time, I was just a blue belt, so I didn't really know what happened because it was so fast. Like, I don't remember how I finished him. I don't know if it was like a quick heel hook or something. But he just did it so fast, I didn't even know what I was looking at. And then I was like, oh, wow, okay, that was really cool. I don't know what I saw, but I guess I'm going to go home now. Bye. And so it was, collective 6 hours on the road for less than 30 seconds of jiu-jitsu.
Oh, man. I love that story.
Oh, man. Yeah. What a time.
A time indeed. How much time do we have?
We're pretty much
at
there.
the end. Yeah, we're at the end. Cool. Well, thank you, Matt, very much.
Thank you,
for letting me interview you. I hope everybody watching this got something out of it, how they can at least start delving into how they want to structure their strength training for BJJ, whether that's alone, whether that's with a strength coach who specifies in that niche.
Really quickly. I don't know if you're going to ask me this or not, but I'm going to tell people where to find.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
in case anybody wants literally everything that's ever existed in my brain regarding strength training, I wrote the definitive guide to strength training for BJJ on the BJJ Reddit. It's 40,000 characters in 2 parts and will take you an hour to read, but it will give you a comprehensive rundown of everything that I explained on this podcast and more. And if you were to try to structure your own program, there's a lot of good information in there for you. The second is our Instagram is at Victory Submission Strength. Our YouTube is also at Victory Submission Strength. We have all of our entire exercise library is on there for free. So if people want to take inspiration or do whatever they want, they can go there and find it. We recently started a TikTok. I know. I bit the bullet. I went in on it. I think the handle is Victory Sub Strength because I couldn't fit the whole title. It's too long. So I had to abbreviate it somehow. And that seemed right in the moment, but I don't know. I may change that. And then my personal Instagram is at matt.jits.hugh.
HEW.
Yep. HEW. And, if anybody's interested or anybody is listening to this in San Jose, and you're interested in how we can help you move, feel, perform better for BJJ, just go to victorysubmissionstrength.com, sign up for a free strategy session. You can talk to a coach, and they can show you how to do that.
Hell yeah. Thank you for plugging all that stuff because I was definitely maybe going to not remember to ask you. Now it's my turn for the outro. Thanks for listening to another episode, everyone. Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Damn. If you enjoy this podcast, like, comment, and subscribe in caps on YouTube. Follow us at Thanks for the Roll on Instagram and TikTok. Give us 5 stars and write us a review wherever you listen. And in all caps, share this episode with someone you think would benefit from it. See you next time. And thanks for the roll.
Thanks for the roll.
Usually we have a third guest. Thanks for the roll. All right, that's it. That's a wrap.